Have you ever noticed how many people get really excited for crochet in the beginning and then slowly disappear from it? Their hooks sit untouched, their yarn pile collects dust, that half-finished blanket stays in the basket for months, or maybe even years, and I don't think people talk enough about why this happens. I actually recently made a really fun video where I asked crocheters why they start crocheting in the first place, and the answers were absolutely beautiful. Some people started crocheting because of stress relief, some because of grief, some because they wanted a creative hobby, others because they learned from their grandma, TikTok, YouTube, or just randomly picked up a hook one day and fell in love with it. But the other side of crochet is just as relatable and a lot less fun to talk about. A lot of people quit crochet quietly. Not because they're lazy, not because they're not creative, not because they failed at crochet, but because crochet can become frustrating, expensive, lonely, repetitive, overwhelming, and emotionally exhausting sometimes, especially for beginner crocheters. One minute you're excited to start a new crochet project, and the next minute you're frogging the same 5 rows, wondering why your edges still look crooked. You compare your work to people online who've been crocheting for 10 years, your yarn gets expensive, your hands hurt, your motivation disappears, your unfinished projects start piling up, and before you know it, something that once felt relaxing starts feeling stressful. And that is called crochet burnout, my friend. And crochet burnout can happen way faster than people expect, especially if you turn crochet into productivity, pressure, or perfection. So today I want to talk about the real reasons people quit crochet. The reasons nobody really prepares beginners for. But I also want to talk about how to keep crochet fun, sustainable, and comforting before burnout hits. Because if you've ever felt unmotivated, discouraged, overwhelmed, or even guilty about crochet, you're definitely not alone. Let me start by talking about my own experience with crochet burnout because I think a lot of crocheters, especially creative people online, quietly go through this. When I first started crocheting, I was completely obsessed with it in the best way possible. I was excited about learning new stitches, buying yarn, starting projects, watching crochet tutorials for hours, all of it. I felt like I had finally found a hobby that just clicked with me as an adult. And that meant a lot because I always loved crafting. Even as a kid, I was constantly making something or coloring or DIYs or random creative projects. And y'all, I literally went to a performing arts high school. I've always needed some kind of creative outlet, so finding crochet felt exciting and inspiring to me all at the same time. But then that excitement started growing really fast. I loved crochet so much that I started a YouTube channel around it. And in the beginning, it felt amazing. I was posting crochet projects weekly, talking about my favorite crochet designers, sharing my progress, buying more yarn, planning more videos. I felt productive all the time. But looking back, I can now see that I was pushing myself way too hard. I was crocheting constantly to keep up with my upload schedule. My wrist hurt and my back hurt, and as a desk job girly, sitting all day then coming home to sit more wasn't the smartest thing that I could have done. My creativity started to feel drained, but because I was growing on YouTube and because I cared so much about my crochet content, I just kept going anyway. And I think this is where crochet burnout sneaks up on a lot of people. At first it feels like passion, and then it slowly starts turning into pressure. I noticed I stopped experimenting with crochet the way that I used to. Instead of learning new difficult stitches or trying advanced crochet patterns, I stayed inside my comfort zone because simple projects were way faster to finish and easier to film. I didn't really have time to slow down and enjoy learning anymore because I was focused on staying consistent online. After a while, that started really messing with me mentally. I had been crocheting for years at this point, so I started feeling frustrated with myself. I would see other crocheters making these beautiful garments and complicated patterns, perfectly styled photos, and I started wondering why I still felt so behind. Why did advanced crochet projects still intimidate me? Why did social media make it seem like everybody was improving faster? Why did crochet suddenly start feeling stressful instead of relaxing? Social media comparison can really ruin creativity if you're not careful. I constantly compared my crochet projects to other people online. Their stitches look cleaner, their colors look better, their photos got more engagement, their projects look more professional, and even though crochet is supposed to be a relaxing hobby, I started treating it like I was competing with strangers on the internet. Needless to say, that takes the joy out of crafting real fast. And now here I am in 2026, still making crochet videos, but approaching crochet completely differently. I barely go on Instagram anymore because I realized that constantly consuming crochet content was making me feel creatively exhausted rather than inspired. And this year, I haven't even finished a single crochet project, not one. The only thing that I've consistently worked on is my waffle stitch blanket, which is the same blanket that I talked about last year. I bought about 5 skeins of Pound of Love, and I've barely barely made a dent into the second one. So yeah, I'm not even close to being done. I only work on it during my lunch break at work, and with how busy work has been lately, lunch breaks are few and far between these days. A few years ago, I would have been embarrassed to admit this as a crochet YouTuber. I would have felt guilty for not being more productive, for not finishing enough projects, or for not keeping up. But now, I'm just grateful that crochet is still part of my life at all, because there was a point where I pushed myself so hard that burnout doesn't even feel like a strong enough word for it. And I know I'm not the only crocheter who's felt this way. One of the biggest misconceptions about crochet is that it's always peaceful and relaxing from the very beginning. And don't get me wrong, crochet can absolutely be relaxing. For a lot of people, crochet becomes stress relief, creative therapy, or even a form of self-care. There's something calming about sitting down with your yarn, getting into a rhythm, and slowly watching something come together stitch by stitch. But I think social media sometimes skips over the frustrating parts of crochet. People see the cozy aesthetic first. They see the finished crochet blankets, the cute cardigans, the aesthetic yarn pulls, the relaxing music and crochet TikToks, and Pinterest-worthy craft rooms. And because of that, a lot of beginner crocheters go into this hobby expecting instant peace and instant satisfaction. But most people experience confusion before the confidence. Nobody talks about how mentally challenging crochet can be at the beginning. You're counting stitches over and over again, trying not to lose track. Your hands cramp up, your wrists start hurting, your back hurts from hunching over a project for hours. You spend 30 minutes crocheting a row just to realize that you made a mistake near the beginning, and now you have to frog the whole thing. And frogging, that alone has probably made thousands of people want to quit crochet. Then you add in confusing patterns, unfamiliar abbreviations, tension problems, uneven edges, accidentally skipping stitches, projects curling when they're not supposed to, and realizing that crochet progress can be painfully slow sometimes, especially with large crochet projects like blankets. I love crochet deeply, but it definitely is not butterflies and rainbows all the time. I think that reality sometimes surprises a lot of people, because when beginners struggle, they sometimes assume that they're just bad at crochet, but struggling is a big part of learning crochet. Every experienced crocheter has had an ugly project. Every crocheter has messed up the stitch count. Every crocheter has had to restart projects multiple times. Every crocheter has looked at their pattern and thought, what am I even reading right now? That confusion is totally normal. And strangely enough, that's also part of what makes crochet so rewarding, because eventually, after all the mistakes, frogging, frustration, and trial and error, something starts clicking. Your tension improves, your hands move faster, your patterns make more sense, you stop panicking every single time you lose count, and one day you look down and you realize that you made something really beautiful with your own hands. And that feeling is really hard to describe unless if you crochet. And I think there's a bigger life lesson hidden inside of that process too. Some of the things that challenge us the most are also the things that help us grow the most. Crochet teaches patience, it teaches problem solving, consistency, and it teaches you how to keep going even when progress feels slow. You know, that quote, grow through what you go through, really applies to crochet, because every mistake, every restarted project, every uneven row, and every frustrating moment is part of becoming better. Not just at crochet, but sometimes at giving yourself grace too. I think one of the fastest ways people lose joy in crochet is constantly feeling like you're behind. And social media has made that feeling way worse for a lot of crocheters. We open Pinterest and see these perfectly styled crochet rooms with shelves color coordinated down to the skein. We scroll TikTok and watch someone finish a sweater in 30 seconds because the video sped up by 900%. We go on Instagram and we see flawless crochet garments, intricate stitch work, and people casually freehanding things that would take us about 6 business months to figure out. And after seeing all of that day after day, a lot of us start putting unrealistic expectations of ourselves without even realizing it. We compare our beginner crochet projects to people who have been crocheting for over 10 years. We compare our chapter 1 to somebody else's chapter 20. And then we start questioning ourselves. Why aren't my stitches cleaner? Why am I still struggling with tension? Why do my colors never look right? Why am I crocheting so slowly? Why don't my projects look professional? That comparison can quietly suck the fun out of crochet. Crochet was never supposed to be a competition, but social media can definitely make it feel like one. And then the second we start improving and gaining confidence in our craft, a new pressure can show up: monetization. Now it's suddenly, should I open an Etsy shop? Should I sell my crochet work? Should I start taking commissions? Should I become a crochet content creator? Could I turn crochet into a passive income? And listen, there is absolutely nothing wrong with making money from crochet. There's a lot of incredibly talented crochet business owners out there doing amazing things, but turning a hobby into a business projects can completely change your relationship with it. The moment crochet becomes only productivity, deadlines, content, algorithms, or income, a lot of people stop enjoying it in the same way. Because instead of using crochet for peace or creativity or comfort, you start crocheting to keep up, to post, to sell, to finish, to perform, and just to stay relevant. And before you know it, your relaxing hobby starts feeling like unpaid overtime. You start feeling guilty every single time you want to rest. Guilty for unfinished projects, not posting enough, losing motivation, or not being productive with your creativity. Even now, I still have to actively give myself grace with my own crochet projects. My waffle stitch blanket is literally moving at the speed of a tired snail, and I've been talking about that blanket forever at this point. And I still love the project, but I'm allowing myself to take time with it instead of forcing myself to rush to finish it just so that I can say that it's done. And I think more crocheters need permission to do that. Not every crochet project needs to become content. Not every crocheter needs a side hustle, and not every hobby needs to become a business plan. Sometimes a blanket can just be a blanket. And then there's the yarn situation, because crochet can also become very consumer driven very fast. Yarn prices keep going up. Storage starts overflowing. You buy hooks, stitch markers, organizers, blocking mats, pattern bags, pattern books, and somehow you keep buying yarn faster than you can actually use it. At some point, a lot of crocheters realized they accidentally became yarn collectors more than crocheters. I had to completely reevaluate my own yarn stash, and if you've already watched my yarn stash video, you already know my collection wasn't even huge compared to some other people online. But even with the relatively small stash, I realized I truly didn't need one more skein of yarn, because the excitement of buying yarn and the reality of using yarn are two very different things. And I think this all connects to something bigger happening in creative hobbies right now. We live in a very fast-paced, overly productive world where people are encouraged to turn every interest into part of their identity. So when people discover crochet, it can quickly become their personality, content, business, coping mechanisms, social life, sorts of validation, or their entire online presence. And there is nothing wrong with deeply identifying as a crocheter. Crochet communities can bring so much positivity, comfort, inspiration, and connection, but sometimes it can also create pressure to fit into a certain version of what a real crocheter looks like. Like feeling bad because you lost your crojo, or because you don't want to monetize your craft, or you don't care about learning super advanced stitches, or you like repeating simple projects instead of constantly leveling up. And I'll be the first to say this openly. It is completely okay to be a crocheter who only wants to make waffle stitch baby blankets forever. It's okay to enjoy simple crochet projects, or stay in your comfort zone sometimes, or crochet slowly, or create just because it makes you happy. But sometimes in creative communities, stagnation gets treated like failure instead of peace. And I think the most important thing any crocheter can do is stay true to themselves and the kind of relationship they actually want to have with this craft. Because the second crochet stops feeling personal and starts getting performative, burnout usually isn't far behind. Even with all the frustration, comparison, burnout, unfinished projects, and pressure that come with this craft, there's a reason so many people still come back to crochet. Beneath all the algorithms, trends, productivity culture, and social media noise, crochet still offers something really special that a lot of people are searching for right now: comfort, slowness, creativity, community, and grounding. There's something deeply calming about sitting down with your yarn after a long, stressful day to make something with your own hands. And in a world where everything moves so fast, crochet forces you to slow down, one stitch at a time, one row at a time. And I think that's part of why crochet means so much to people emotionally. Some people crochet through grief or anxiety, some people crochet while healing from burnout, some people crochet because it helps them feel less lonely, and some people crochet because it's one of the only hobbies that makes their brain finally feel quiet for a second. And that really matters. Handmade things carry emotion, time, and patience in them. And that's why crochet can feel so personal. And I've noticed something really interesting about crocheters who stay with this craft long term. Usually, they stop trying to be impressive. They stop chasing perfection or keeping up with everyone online, forcing themselves to constantly level up, or treating crochet like a performance. And instead, they start letting crochet become personal again. And that's when people usually reconnect with the joy of it. Not when they're making the most advanced sweater or making everything look Pinterest perfect, but when crochet starts feeling comforting instead of stressful. And I think a lot of us lose that feeling over time because modern life slowly drowns out some of the best parts of this craft. We get distracted by numbers, productivity, comparison, pressure, or trying to figure out how to turn every hobby into something useful or profitable. And sometimes we just need to pause and ask ourselves, what do I love about crochet in the first place? So if this video resonated with you and you've been feeling crochet burnout, losing your crojo, feeling unmotivated to crochet, overwhelmed by unfinished projects, or questioning whether you even want to crochet anymore, maybe the answer isn't quitting forever. Maybe the answer is changing your relationship with this craft. Maybe you need a simple crochet project that takes the pressure off. Maybe you need a quick crochet project so you can feel the joy of finishing something again. Maybe you need to stop learning complicated stitches for a while. Maybe you need to stop comparing yourself to other crocheters online, or completely take a break from online, or maybe even take a break from crochet. A break from crochet does not erase your creativity, and it doesn't make you less talented or mean you failed at this hobby. Sometimes stepping away is exactly what helps people reconnect with what they loved about crochet in the first place. And the most important thing is not to put a timeline on your healing, your creativity, or your motivation. If you need a few weeks away from crochet, take it. If you need 6 months away from crochet, take that. If you need a whole year to discover what you enjoy making, that is all okay. The crochet community will still be here waiting for you with cozy open arms. And if you want a reminder of the beautiful side of this craft, the reasons people actually fall in love with it in the first place, I really want you to watch my recent video that I made called Why Do People Start Crocheting? Listening to other crocheters talk about why they picked up the hook in the first place might be the exact thing that helps you reconnect with your own reasons too. So click that video next and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!